The Kraken's Dominion, A New Era for the Oceans. Chapter 1, Awakening of the Depths. If a kraken, a colossal cephalopod the size of a city, truly existed in our time, the world would change forever. The first signs of its presence would not come as legends but as data from scientific instruments. Seismic sensors worldwide would detect strange impulses, unlike earthquakes. Each movement of such a creature would generate vibrations comparable to low-magnitude tremors. A single swipe of its tentacle would displace thousands of tons of water, creating sudden waves and disrupting established ocean currents. Satellite observations would reveal anomalies on the ocean's surface, long shadows, like giant scars moving beneath the water, disappearing garbage patches as if swept away by an invisible hand, and mysterious waves arising without storms. Such patterns could not be explained by natural processes alone. On land, the evidence would be even more alarming. Shipwrecks washing ashore in Japan or California would bear distinctive marks, hulls sliced cleanly, as if a colossal beak had cut through metal, and decks torn open as though dissected by a scalpel. These were not random damages but the work of an organ crafted by nature, as the beaks of modern squids are already comparable in strength to ceramics. Scaled up to unimaginable proportions, such a beak could indeed slice through steel. From a biological perspective, such a creature would be the apex of the food chain. The kraken would consume dozens of tons of fish and marine mammals daily, rivaling entire fishing fleets. Whale populations would vanish, and tuna and shark numbers would plummet. Ocean ecosystems would restructure within years, and traditional marine life, including fisheries, would face existential threats. The first direct confirmation would likely come from deep-sea submersibles. Cameras might capture a massive eye glimmering in the darkness or the blurred silhouette of a tentacle. Yet, even today, human technology remains limited. Depths beyond 8 kilometers are barely accessible, so evidence would be fragmented, and the truth would remain shrouded in the abyss. The global consequences would be undeniable. Neither torpedoes nor depth charges could reliably stop a creature of such size at kilometer depths. Humanity would be forced to acknowledge that parts of the planet are beyond control, and the ocean belongs to an ancient, primal force. A new era would dawn, not mythical but starkly real, where dominion over the waters belonged not to fleets and technology but to a living entity older than civilization itself. Chapter 2, A New Map of the World. Once the Kraken's existence was confirmed, the familiar world collapsed. The first and most immediate shockwave hit global shipping. For centuries, the global economy relied on oceanic routes, particularly trans-Pacific trade linking Asia and the Americas. But now, this vital artery was paralyzed. The largest container ships, oil tankers, and cargo vessels could no longer safely cross the central Pacific waters, where the Kraken's shadow loomed. Where it might surface or strike with a tentacle, no one dared venture. Authorities acted swiftly. Within months of the first attacks, a special zone was established, the Kraken Zone. This expanse in the heart of the ocean was erased from mariners' charts. International agreements banned traversal of this area, with violations punishable by fines, arrests of captains, or even the forced destruction of vessels posing a threat by entering the forbidden sector. On old maps, where the ocean was once a seamless blue plain, a blank spot now gaped like a wound, ringed by red warning markers. Governments and corporations poured billions into new technologies. Merchant ships were equipped with specialized sonars capable of detecting biological masses dozens of kilometers away. Some vessels adopted experimental acoustic systems designed to deter the giant with low-frequency sounds. However, the reliability of these measures was questionable. No one could say with certainty whether a creature that ruled the depths could be intimidated. Trade restructured in haste, routes doubled or tripled in length. To avoid the Kraken Zone, ships detoured through the Indian Ocean or the Panama Canal, causing bottlenecks in ports. Shipping costs skyrocketed. Goods that once arrived in 2 weeks now took months. Logistics became a chess game where every misstep risked billions in losses. Thus, the map of the world, in a maritime sense, was rewritten. The ocean, once a symbol of free trade and global connectivity, became a territory marked by blank spots. Humanity acknowledged that not everything was within its control. At the center of the map stood not humankind but a force older than civilization. And that force had a name, the Kraken. Chapter 3, The Era of Undersea Colonies. When the ocean's surface became unsafe, humanity seriously considered retreating into the depths. Where temporary scientific stations and Cold War-era military bases once stood, new settlements emerged. What was once futuristic fantasy became practical necessity. The first undersea colonies were upgraded research complexes. Their hermetic domes, made of ultra-strong alloys and composites, withstood pressures of hundreds of atmospheres. Inside were self-contained life support systems, closed-loop air and water recycling, hydroponic farms with artificial lighting, and small aquaculture modules for cultivating fish and algae. Where scientists once lived temporarily, families now settled. Coastal cities, particularly vulnerable to the Kraken's presence, went further. Massive floating platforms were developed, capable of not only staying afloat but submerging in times of danger. These colossal structures resembled city ships. In peaceful times, they remained near shorelines, serving as hubs for trade and life, but during threats, they slowly descended into the depths, vanishing from the monster's reach. Life in such settlements demanded discipline. Every resident was both a colonist and a specialist. Engineers maintained systems, medics tended to both people and aquaculture, and children studied in educational zones within the domes. These colonies became not only refuges but also laboratories of the future, testing new technologies in energy, biotechnology, and robotics. Yet, a shadow loomed over this new world. Each undersea colony reminded its inhabitants that they lived this way not for progress but for survival. Human ingenuity allowed adaptation to the threat, but the cost was clear. The ocean's surface, once a symbol of freedom and trade, now belonged to another entity. The Kraken was no longer just a myth or a threat, it became the architect of a new civilization, forcing humanity to reshape itself and its cities to the rhythm of the depths. Chapter 4: Fishing in the Shadow. The fishing industry suffered among the worst from the Kraken's emergence. As colossal shadows patrolled the ocean's expanse, traditional fishing methods became a deadly gamble. Vast schools of tuna, herring, and other commercial species, which had fed millions for centuries, now migrated along new routes to avoid zones where the ancient monster prowled. Ordinary fishing vessels could no longer cast nets freely. The risk of encountering tentacles capable of tearing a ship apart in seconds was too great. To save the industry, humanity turned to technology. Traditional trawlers were replaced by automated systems and unmanned underwater vehicles. These small machines, resembling mechanical fish or torpedoes, could infiltrate low-risk zones, discreetly gather data on fish migrations, and deploy robotic nets. Operated remotely, they returned with catches or information without endangering human lives. Some devices were equipped with acoustic lures, complex sound signals mimicking the movements and noises of entire fish schools. This allowed manipulation of prey behavior, guiding them into nets. Others had sensors detecting minute water vibrations to identify the Kraken's approach and halt operations instantly. The most groundbreaking solution was autonomous undersea farms. Entire complexes, submerged in protected zones, cultivated fish in controlled environments, ensuring food security for coastal nations. This was a return to agriculture, but beneath the ocean's surface. Yet, even in this technological era, some dared to take risks. Desperate fishermen, driven by greed or despair, ventured into the forbidden Kraken Zone. They dreamed of catching rare, valuable species: black tuna, sharks, deep-sea squids. Sometimes they succeeded, and their hauls fetched fortunes. More often, these expeditions ended in tragedy. The wreckage of their vessels, found later, left no doubt that the ancient ocean master still watched every intruder. Fishing was no longer a routine trade. It had become a game with death, an eternal rivalry between humanity and the abyss, where the stakes grew ever higher, and the price of failure was final. Chapter 5: Echoes of Ancient Legends. With the Kraken's emergence, humanity turned again to its ancient myths and legends. Sea monsters, once confined to old maps, sailors' tales, and pirate stories, now gained reality. Historians, folklorists, and oceanographers revisited manuscripts and ancient charts, meticulously studying depictions of monsters and current patterns that might explain these creatures' migrations. Scientists sought patterns in their behavior, cross-referencing old tales with modern observations. When the Kraken appeared, when it vanished, which areas were forbidden, and why. Some researchers began to hypothesize that the Kraken was not merely an animal but a sentient being. Its actions seemed purposeful. It attacked ships when threats were evident, then vanished, leaving uncharted ocean regions untouched. These observations inspired new philosophical movements and nascent cults worshipping the sea giant. People crafted amulets, symbols, and rituals to express reverence for the ocean's depths, believing the Kraken could both punish and protect. Governments and mainstream science initially dismissed these beliefs as superstitions, but as evidence of the Kraken's seemingly deliberate actions mounted, some scientists cautiously entertained the possibility of a primitive form of intelligence. They studied attack patterns, migrations, responses to acoustic signals, and the coordinated movements of its tentacles and shadow, all suggesting an internal logic to its behavior. Over time, the idea of the Kraken as an ancient ocean spirit spread among coastal communities and undersea colonies. Stories of the creature became a source of both fear and reverence, bridging science and myth. Humanity realized it was dealing not just with an animal but with an entity whose existence spanned millions of years, shaping a new order in the global ocean. The Kraken became a symbol of forces that, even in the modern world, could not be fully understood or subdued. Chapter 6: Containment and Defense. When it became clear that destroying the Kraken was impossible, world powers shifted to containment strategies. The primary goal was to create barriers keeping the colossal predator at a safe distance from shipping routes and coastal zones. In the Central Pacific, around the forbidden Kraken Zone, massive floating structures were deployed, barriers equipped with sensors, seismic detectors, and powerful acoustic emitters. These sound walls generated low-frequency noises that, according to scientists, deterred the Kraken from certain areas. Alongside passive barriers, active measures emerged. Naval forces of several nations received new interceptor ships designed specifically to confront the giant. Their hulls, reinforced with composite alloys, could withstand tentacle strikes, and they were armed with electromagnetic cannons that created powerful shock waves in water. These waves didn't kill the Kraken but could disorient it and force it back to the depths. Accompanying drones underwater and aerial provided constant surveillance, tracking the monster's movements and coordinating with ships to minimize crew risks. For rapid response to breaches or attacks, an international force called Hydra was established. This coordinated contingent of ships, submersibles, drones, and scientific observers was ready to act instantly when the Kraken appeared near populated areas or shipping lanes. Hydra's command used satellite data, acoustic sensors, and behavioral models to predict the creature's movements and implement preemptive measures. Yet, despite technological advances, complete safety remained elusive. The Kraken consistently displayed unpredictability, finding weak spots and barriers, altering its depth, and even reacting to acoustic signals as if analyzing human attempts to control it. With each incident, it became clear, containment was possible, but absolute control was not. Humanity learned to live with the threat, building defenses and surveillance, but the fear of the ancient giant lingered like a constant shadow over the ocean. Chapter 7: Ecological Shift. The Kraken's presence triggered profound changes in marine ecosystems, surprising even seasoned oceanographers. Populations of its natural prey, tuna, squids, deep-sea fish plummeted, threatening industrial fisheries but creating new ecological niches. Meanwhile, species adept at evading the threat migrated to safer areas, where their numbers thrived, forming unprecedented coalitions of marine fauna. Scientists began documenting entirely new creatures, clearly adapted to the Kraken's presence. Deep-sea organisms with unusual forms, vibrant bioluminescence, and unique behavioral patterns colonized previously inaccessible territories. Many formed symbiotic relationships with existing species, creating complex networks that humanity was only beginning to understand. Unexpectedly, the Kraken's movements altered global ocean currents. Its massive tentacles influenced water flows over hundreds of kilometers. Satellites and deep-sea sensors recorded these fluctuations, which explained temperature anomalies and nutrient redistribution. Hypotheses emerged that the creature stirs mixed water layers, oxygenating them and redistributing plankton, benefiting the entire food chain. Some ecologists began viewing the Kraken as a unique regulatory mechanism. While destructive to certain species, it helped cleanse the ocean of pollution and restore balance disrupted by human activity. Its influence was dual, both a threat and an ecological force humanity couldn't replicate. Thus, the ancient predator, long dwelling in the abyss, became part of a new ecosystem. It altered marine life, forged new connections, created resilient niches, and forced humanity to rethink its approach to controlling nature. The Kraken was not just a threat but an unpredictable architect of the underwater world, forever reshaping the planet's ecological landscape. Chapter 8: Secret Operations. Despite the official containment strategy, some nations and private corporations pursued clandestine efforts to neutralize the Kraken. These operations remained highly classified to avoid public panic or provoking the creature into more aggressive actions. Projects ranged from underwater biological weapons to powerful explosives capable of generating shockwaves akin to submarine earthquakes. Autonomous killer drones became a key focus. These could dive into deep waters, track the Kraken, and attempt to affect it with sound waves, mechanical grapples, or explosive devices. Some drones returned with damaged tentacles, showing partial success, but no mission achieved decisive victory. Failed attempts often ended in catastrophe, with equipment destroyed and personnel lost. Particular attention was given to psychic technologies aimed at influencing the Kraken's behavior or consciousness. Based on hypotheses of its potential sentience, these experiments used complex acoustic and electromagnetic signals. While some tests showed temporary results, large-scale control remained unattainable. These secret operations unfolded across multiple fronts: open seas, deep ocean, and specialized labs in undersea bases. They demanded rapid response and coordination but remained highly dangerous and unpredictable. Interfering with the ancient predator showcased human courage and technological prowess but also underscored humanity's vulnerability to a creature whose scale and power surpassed modern capabilities. Thus, behind the public containment measures lay a hidden network of operations, known to few, revealing that even in the 21st century, humanity could not fully control the ancient giant that ruled the marine abyss. Chapter 9: New Understanding and Coexistence. After a decade of coexisting with the Kraken, humanity began adapting to the new reality. Initial fear and panic gave way to cautious respect for a creature that proved not just a destructive force but a complex, possibly sentient organism. This realization gradually permeated public consciousness, influencing science, culture, and philosophy. International teams of scientists united, creating joint programs to observe and study the Kraken. They developed sophisticated hydroacoustic signals and light patterns to communicate with the giant on its terms, not to threaten but to study its responses and behavior. Safety protocols were established, dictating how and at what distance the Kraken could be observed to avoid provoking aggression. For this purpose, Kraken ambassadors were created: small, swift submersibles capable of trailing the giant, recording its movements, and transmitting data to researchers. These never approached too closely, allowing observation with minimal risk to both sides. They became key tools in understanding the creature's behavior and hints of possible intelligence. Over time, people began to see the Kraken not only as a threat but as a partner in maintaining oceanic balance. Its movements influenced species distribution, regulated ecosystems, and created new ecological niches. Humanity realized that complete destruction or control was impossible, and survival lay in respect and cautious coexistence. Though true peace with the Kraken remained distant, the first steps toward coexistence were taken. This required patience, science, and a new understanding of the ancient giant, now an integral part of the modern ocean. Humanity learned to see the Kraken not just as a threat but as a complex, possibly sentient neighbor shaping a new era of human-nature interaction. Chapter 10: The Future of the Ocean. As 2025 drew to a close, a world transformed by the Kraken's awakening stood on the brink of a new era. The ocean, once fully subject to human exploration, industrial exploitation, and scientific ambition, had become an arena of rivalry between two mighty forces: human ingenuity and an ancient, inexplicable power. On one hand, humanity wielded technologies, surveillance systems, undersea bases, and scientific knowledge to track the giant and partially understand ocean ecosystem dynamics. On the other, the Kraken remained incomprehensible: its size, behavior, and possible intelligence beyond human control. Attempts to fully understand or subdue it ended in failures or partial successes, exposing the limits of human capability. The future remained uncertain. Scientists and engineers built models to predict the Kraken's routes and ecological impact, but each new discovery raised more questions. The possibility of full contact or peaceful coexistence was merely a hypothesis, with no guarantee of the creature's tranquility. One thing was clear: the pre-Kraken era was over. The world of the early 21st century no longer existed. Humanity had to learn to coexist with the ancient giant, respect its ecological role, and adapt to the ocean's uncharted depths. This coexistence brought both threats and unique opportunities for science, ecology, and technology. The world of 2025 and beyond was one where humans and the monsters shared a single planet. The ocean was no longer just a resource or a space for research, it became a realm of interaction, respect, and cautious coexistence. Though many mysteries remained, humanity began to understand that the lessons of this coexistence were only beginning to unfold, lessons that would shape the future of human relations with the ancient forces of the sea.